Welcome to this self-reflection session. Now, what we're going to do here is take about 45 minutes and I will ask questions, and simply all I want you to do is just answer them truthfully to the best of your abilities. And they're meant to get us to think more about our lives, right? Taking intentional time, putting it aside, just thinking about our lives. Revolutionary, right? Anyways, like always, let's start with 5 minutes of breathing. So I just set a timer for 5 minutes, and all we're going to do is just sit here and breathe. If it helps, count in, out, use numbers if you need to. But it's very simple, very basic. Breathe in, breathe out. Feels good. Just breathe. All right. So that was 5 minutes of breathing. Doesn't it feel good? It feels so good. Now, what we're going to do now is just write or think, because writing and thinking kind of go, what do you call it, synonymously together. Anyways, I'm posing questions. I want you to think, and writing kind of helps that process. So the first question we have today: when was the last time you feel like you used your imagination? Imagination. I want you to write about imagination. Imagination. The second question, I skipped over probably the most important question. And if you've gone to these sessions before, you know what the question is. But let's start this time with imagination. When was the last time you feel you used your imagination? Imagination. We use our imagination for many different things. Our imagination to solve problems, to visualize what does not yet exist. But anything in the future can be created with imagination. First, using our imagination, right? I'm imagining a full glass of espresso right now. I'm visualizing it. And it has appeared. Okay. Imagination is so crucial to the human experience and for society. Something I'm working on right now is a new book. It's my fourth book, and it's similar to my third book, where it's kind of like an art book slash philosophy slash, I don't know, life lessons or sayings. But what I did the last time was be aware of what's around me, right? Going about my day, and I would then find kind of scenes or patterns, shapes that struck my curiosity. So I'd take a photo of them and then replicate them in Adobe Illustrator and then use only the primary colors. And so it was this really cool project called Primary Ponderings. And this time, this fourth book is similar in that structure, where I'm going about my day, but I'm noticing designs on building facades and taking photos of them and replicating them, or putting an effect on them and making them black and white. And it's more so designs, whereas Primary Ponderings was more geometrical. This one is more, I would say, it's more about like ornamentation, and it's inspired a lot by nature, so like leaves and vines and just kind of that, because and the kind of the philosophy to go with it is more inspired by nature, like living in accordance with nature, rather than necessarily standards of modern society in a way, which you see, and it's like art movements. So then you teach yourself about art movements, right? Where when I'm looking for our designs, nature inspired, and what I have found, they're kind of late 19th century, like 1890s-ish, a little spillover into the 20th century, and it's the art movement before Art Nouveau, or not Art Nouveau, Art Deco. And Art Deco then, this is when the Bauhaus came in like the 1920s, right? And everything is simplified, geometric. So then kind of the nature becomes more, rather than like this, it's more like that and that, right? So it's been fun to... This is something I've missed a lot, because I've spent a lot of time recording over the past few years, and I haven't had something more conceptual to work on, something like bigger. And this new book that I'm working on has allowed me to explore my imagination more and visualize kind of a bigger idea to communicate. And so while I'm going around taking photos of designs on building facades, this is as I'm going around kind of capturing these designs. I've done it in Chicago, New York, London, and Milwaukee, and about to go to Paris. And something I feel is that the architecture today, a lot of buildings, both industrial and both commercial and residential buildings, are quite basic, quite, I don't know about minimal, but cheap. Now, the materials they're using, they're probably more efficient materials than, the late 19th century, but they seem to have lost character. And everything is becoming kind of stripped of its character and beauty in a way. There's beauty in the details, right? And there seems to be kind of a lack of imagination. We're influenced by our environments, right? And that includes the architecture around us. Whatever city you're in, there's kind of, every city has a different style and kind of a uniqueness to it. And it influences the culture of the place. And more, if we're creating architecture that lacks character or is built simply to just sell and resell and not like live and not commit to in a way that affects us individually as well. And this lack of imagination bleeds into other areas, whether it be education, politics, sports. Like, I'm excited about imagination and what we can do with it when we all work together with it. Long-winded way of saying imagination. This morning I've been doing some traveling. I was just in Wisconsin, and I took the train back down to Chicago this morning, and I say, like, every time I travel, I always discount just the getting out of rhythm of a day or a routine that you have, just simply because there's this extra time and energy spent towards these, like, other things. And then we're back. But it's thrown us off a little bit. And so even when we're starting this, right, I felt a little different. But the breathing exercises really help. It's something we don't do enough, right? Just breathe. All right, this next question. What are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? Infinite things to be grateful for. What's something on your mind that you are grateful for, that you're thankful exists? People or things, you know? What are you grateful for? This next question, think of a time where you felt limited by others. What was that experience like? And then think about it a little deeper. Were you rejected in that sense? Based on fair points, or simply saying no because it was easy, right? So think of a time you were frustrated because you felt limited by others. Was it just? Was it unjust? But I want you to remove yourself from it and look at it objectively. Was it valid? The rejection, yes or no? that can be a frustrating experience for us, right? Feeling limited by others. Because we want to realize our potential. We want to go for it, right? And, sometimes it can be frustrating, and sometimes it can also be helpful for people to kind of check us a little bit. You might be going too fast. Need to pull back a little bit. Life is interesting, isn't it? I feel often we can see the big things, right? But there's these nuances that also take some time, right? Where the big things are sexy, and the details, the nuances that lead to those big things can seem tedious and unimportant, but they're essential. They're essential holistically for it all to occur. This next question, why don't we think and write about this might depend on where you live, but what nuances of the season are you picking up? So we're going, I'm in Chicago, Midwest, United States, and we're going from summer to fall to winter. And, the leaves are falling down. They're very colorful. They're falling. It's gotten really cold. Briefly, there's snow. It snowed like an inch. I was in Wisconsin last night. It snowed an inch. What little nuances, what smells, what sights, what activities are you aware of what's happening around you, right? Notice those little nuances, those changes in the season. Write about them. The seasonal nuances. Oftentimes we're going about our lives so quickly and so focused, that we don't look around. We don't become aware of those small little details. That breath of crisp air, the autumn air. specifically looking at a leaf and seeing its orange colors, red colors. And just taking that moment to appreciate that, It's very similar to appreciating the people around you, right? And appreciating nature and its subtle shifts and changes are such a part of life. And it's very similar to people around us, right? Stop and listen to what's going on with their day, or how they're dressed, or gestures they make. And appreciate how it's all kind of interconnected and also unique at the same time, right? It's beautiful. It's quite beautiful. It's like sometimes you get this like scent or smell that you don't remember having until a year previously, right? In the same season. And it's like, you smell it and it's like, wow, yeah, that's right, It's cool. It's beautiful to me. This morning, just all the trees covered in snow, just white, and just, I was disappointed in myself that I left 10 minutes later than when I had planned to. And so I was more in a hurry to catch a train than I normally would be. And as I'm observing the trees around me and nature and the snow on the fields, and I had these like two half thoughts where this is beautiful, this is amazing, right? At the same time, it's like, all right, we gotta hurry. I try to put my best effort into never being in a hurry, because it shows a lack of preparation to me. And as you go along in your journey, you understand that like every action adds up. Every action you take affects your whole life in a way, right? And what I desire is peace of mind, to be at peace almost always, and to realize that, to experience that, requires a lot of thinking about situations ahead of time, preparation and preparing for those things, right? So that you never feel, that just like that anxiety in yourself, and you gotta hustle and hurry. It's like, I try to be prepared so that I don't experience that. And most of the time I do really well, but sometimes I don't. And then it's kind of like a scoreboard, and it's like, man, I could have been better there. Next time I'm gonna be better. And that also falls on you, right? And it's easy to blame traffic or a storm or the weather and another driver or another person, a pedestrian. Like, at the end of the day, it comes down to yourself, and you could have always been earlier or more prepared. Yeah, the nuances of life. I think people often miss those nuances surrounding us in our environments We either seem to be, working or on our screens, right? Or on our screens. And look around. Observe the beautiful world around us and the how interconnected it is. It's quite beautiful. And if we don't pay attention to that, if we don't take the time, it doesn't have to be a long time, right? Just a moment, then the world more and more becomes centered around ourself and our experience or the story that we're telling ourselves inside of us. But really, it's about all of this, right? We'll you walk down the street in a city and people are blowing leaves, and you can smell that smell of the dead leaves on the ground. It's just like it's indescribable, right? Words don't cover it. Now this next question, and might have to be our last. Let's make it a good one. Let's kind of weave back to imagination. What's something coming up that you're excited about, and how do you imagine it will go? I might have to come back to this too. Then, how did it go, right? And how was our experience versus our imagination? How close was it? That would be an interesting comparison, right? I often find that I can think of something, right? I can visualize how something will be, and then in the moment, it's like this beautiful, magical moment where you're like, oh yeah, this is happening. It's like I imagined it, but just the nuances are a little different. The nuances are more filled in, I would say. So what's something that you're excited about coming up, and how do you imagine it will go? All right. One last thing. All right. That was our self-reflection session for today. Thank you for taking the time to give to yourself, give time to yourself. What we do once can be helpful, but what we do consistently over time can transform us. And that's what we're focused on, transformation and major results, right? But again, like we've kind of discussed today, it's a lot of those nuances, a lot of those details that go into it that create the greatest matter, you know? So I want to thank you again for taking this time.